Okay, go ahead.
Hello everyone, my name is Christopher Wong. I'm a high school student at Archbishop Midi High School, and I'm currently in my junior year. I'm a certified AWS Cloud Practitioner, and I'm currently working on getting my Developer's Associate certification. So let's go over something real quick. Do you guys know what AWS stands for?
No.
Alright, well AWS stands for Amazon Web Services, and this is what we're going to be talking about today. So this is our first meetup of the AWS Saratoga Meetup Group, and I'm very excited to be hosting. So what is cloud computing? Well, if we take a look at the top right-hand corner over there, you see a blue and white graphic. Now that graphic, we can see the cloud, and is giving off cloud resources to other devices. So your tablets, your phones, my computer, we're all utilizing the cloud. But what is the cloud exactly? Well, if we take a look down here in the other graphic, we see servers. And these servers, to put it bluntly, are basically large computers. And these computers are owned by different sorts of companies. These computers then give off computing resources to our devices. Again, our computers, our phones, our tablets. But why would I want to use cloud computing? Well, recently I've been coding a Twitter bot. If you guys know what Twitter is, it's pretty popular. And this bot would send messages incrementally, so every hour or so. The problem is that to keep the Twitter bot online, I would have to keep my computer online. And I sleep right next to my computer. So I don't want to have my computer in front of me the entire night on because I wouldn't get any sleep. So that's where I found cloud computing. I found a way to keep my Twitter bot online while also being able to sleep. So what I do is I run my Twitter bot on those servers. So instead of running it on my computer, it is now on those servers, which allows me to shut off my computer and have a good night's rest. Question?
You're saying you're outsourcing your computer resources to the cloud, that's what you're saying, right?
Precisely. Thank you for the question. Oh yeah, if you guys have any questions, just ask me right now. Or I have a slide at the end where I have like a question slide basically. So the cloud pricing model is usually pay as you go. This means that, well, can you guys guess? You pay as you go. Exactly. The more you use, the more you pay. So if I'm to use nothing, I pay nothing. But if I were to use a lot, I would pay a lot. A few cloud actually, do you guys use Gmail? You guys watch Netflix or anything of the sort? Well, all of these run on the cloud, but they don't run on the same cloud. In fact, there are different cloud providers. AWS, IBM Cloud, Google Cloud, and Microsoft Azure are a couple of the big names. Do you guys know what cloud Gmail runs on?
The Gmail cloud.
Google Cloud.
Yes, exactly, Google Cloud. Because Gmail is owned by because Gmail is owned by Google, it runs on the Google Cloud. But do you guys know what cloud Netflix uses? Well, it doesn't have its own cloud. In fact, it uses AWS. So AWS is an acronym for Amazon Web Services, and it is a cloud provider. That means that it owns those big servers, and it also sells those parts of those big servers to people like you and I. It markets in the retail industry. So again, it sells to people like you and I. In 2021 Q1, a quarter is basically a fourth of the year. So around from January to March, it has made $13.5 billion. And you guys watch Netflix, watch Disney. Have you guys heard of NASA before?
Yeah.
Well, all of these companies utilize AWS. And Netflix is by far the biggest spender. It spends around $20 million a month for AWS alone. Virtual machines. Have you guys ever heard of a virtual machine before?
Yeah, I have. It's if you got good internet connection, you can essentially use a computer wirelessly.
Yeah, exactly. So right in front of me, I have a computer, and this is a physical machine. But if I were to use a virtual machine, it would mean, as he said, a virtualized computer. Virtual machines borrow CPU, memory, and storage from physical machines. Those physical machines can be my own computer, or it can be one of the large servers that AWS owns. And again, CPU, memory, and storage, to put it basically, if we imagine myself as a computer, my CPU would be my brain. It tells my arm to move left or right. The memory would be, well, what I remember. I remember eating a banana before school yesterday, and that's a memory. Storage is how much memory I can have. I can't remember all the times I've eaten a banana before school, but I do remember yesterday's eating a banana before school. But what would I use a virtual machine for? Well, personally, I use them to do things like trying out OSs, workspaces, and gaming. OS is an operating system, and well, it's not an operating system, it stands for operating system. And it is the software that allows my computer to function. Do you guys have Apple products, anyone?
Yeah.
Well, if you take your phone out and you look at settings, there's something called iOS that it shows. And iOS, OS, operating system. If you use Apple, you're using iOS. If you're using a computer like mine, you're probably using Windows or Linux. And if you're using an Android of some sort, you're using Linux. Those are the three largest operating systems right now. And Windows currently is not very safe. So if I want to run an application that's safe, I can't really do it on Windows because it's not very safe. But Linux is safe because no one uses it as a desktop operating system. So no one builds viruses for it. This means that I can run that application on Linux and it would be safe. Problem is, I have Windows right now. I can't just delete my Windows to install Linux to run this one application and then delete Linux to install my Windows back. That would be very inefficient. So instead, what I do is I use a virtual machine that has the Linux operating system installed currently, and I'm able to run those applications on it, workspaces. On my computer, I have a multitude of applications. I have social networking, I have gaming, I have important documents, and my computer gets very cluttered very fast. But what can I do to solve this? Well, have you guys ever heard of the term workspace before? It's sort of an area you work in. And I'm able to have a virtual machine work as a workspace. So I put all my social networking apps in this one virtual machine. And instead of my PC being cluttered, I have it all organized into different workspaces. Gaming. Personally, my computer isn't the best. It can't run high performance games very easily because it doesn't have a good graphics card. Well, what do I do then? I want to play those games, but I can't. So instead, I use virtual machines. Cloud gaming is on the rise right now, and many people are starting to utilize it. Basically, what they do is they have virtual machines with a lot of CPU, memory, and storage, and they're also able to add GPU to it. This means the virtual machine runs basically like a gaming computer. While, I'm also able to access it on my laptop. Now, virtual machines have a lot of benefits. A few of them include cost savings, agility, scalability, and security. Cost savings. I don't have to pay for any of the physical machinery that is needed. So instead of having to buy a $5,000 gaming PC, I can spend around $60 a month for a gaming PC that works just as fine, but it's not a PC, it's a virtual machine. Agility. I can delete virtual machines and create virtual machines within minutes or seconds. Scalability. Let's say I'm running a website on one of my or a virtual machine actually, and there's a sudden influx of users that come in. Well, that one virtual machine can't handle all of those users. What do I do then? Well, I scale out. This means I add more virtual machines that are also running my website. So now those users can come in and my website won't be laggy. But what if all those users then leave? Well, I have a lot of virtual machines now and I have to pay for all of them. So what AWS allows me to do is scale. This means I can also delete my virtual machines or scale in. So now I can save on costs, plus my website will be less laggy. Security. AWS is responsible for the security of the cloud. So you're hosting all your data on these large physical servers, and those servers are physical again. That means they're susceptible to damage. What the responsibility of the security of the cloud means is that AWS is responsible for any physical damages done to those servers. So you don't have to worry about your data being destroyed. Also, if I want to do some sort of funny business that could end up in me getting a virus, I wouldn't do it on my computer. Instead, I would run it on a virtual machine. This is because I can simply just delete the virtual machine and the virus would be gone. But if I were to get the virus on my main computer, then I would have to, well, get rid of my computer if the virus is that bad. EC2 is a virtual service that AWS provides. And EC2 stands for Elastic Cloud Compute, hence the E and the two C's. It provides on-demand instances. Have you guys watched Netflix before? Well, Netflix is an on-demand video provider. This means that whenever I want to watch a movie or TV show, I can watch that on demand. And instances means the exact same thing as a virtual machine. The words are exactly the same, interchangeable. I only pay for what I use. Again, if I'm to use a little, I pay a little. If I use a lot, I pay a lot. And again, you see these terms coming again from the last slide. Scalability, agility, and cost optimization. Because EC2 runs virtual machines, it has all of the benefits of virtual machines. It's very scalable, it's agile, I delete and create virtual machines within seconds, and it's cost optimized. I don't pay for any physical servers. Secure Shell, SSH. So, Secure Shell is the way for me to connect to my virtual machine. There are also things like Windows remote control, but I use Secure Shell to connect to Linux machines specifically. Now, again, we imagine the Secure Shell as a virtual connector, and let's say I wanted to send an email to someone. First, I would need my login information, and I would also need an email application. Just like the email, SSH also requires those things. So the login information is called the private key and host name. That's the password and username. And the application is the Gmail app for sending emails. But for SSH, I use PuTTY, which is an application on my computer. These two things allows me to access Secure Shell, and Secure Shell allows me to access my virtual machine.
Question.
Yes.
Aside than PuTTY, is there any other app can be used for AWS?
Yeah, there's a lot of apps that can be used for AWS. I'm not too sure on all of them because I haven't done much research into SSH. I mainly use PuTTY though. But I know if you want to use Windows, access a Windows machine, there's something called remote control on your own Windows device that you can use to access a Windows virtual machine.
Okay,
Alright.
thanks.
I'm now going to begin the demonstration of creating an EC2 instance and SSHing into it. So again, the first thing we need is we need to download PuTTY, which is the SSH application. So right here I have the PuTTY download. And what I do to download it is I search up PuTTY in Google Chrome or Bing, and I go ahead and just click on the link. And the link's taking quite a while to load actually. Alright, well, I guess while that's loading, I'll go ahead and show you. Oh, never mind, it loaded. Alright, so what I do is I download PuTTY right here, I click on the link, and I'm able to download it. Again, sorry that's very slow. So I know that the virtual machine that I'm running this on is currently a 64-bit machine. So I'm going to click on the 64-bit installer, and it's going to bring me to a download. Here I can just go ahead and open this whenever it's done. And do you guys have any questions for me while we're waiting? No? Alright. So now that's finished downloading, I can go ahead and open it. And it brings me to the installer screen. So I can go ahead and click next. And this is going to be important for later. It's stored in the C drive and it is stored in the program files section. So next, install. And finally, we're gonna install this. And I trust this app, so I'm gonna allow it access. And finally, I can go ahead and finish. Alright. And I don't need that. So if you guys remember from earlier, PuTTY is stored in the C drive and programs in the programs file section. So we go to the C drive over here. And in the programs file section, I should be able to see PuTTY. The reason why I'm doing this is because I need both PuTTY and PuTTY Gen. These are the two things that I need. PuTTY allows me to SSH and PuTTY Gen allows me to create the password. So I can just go ahead and drag these onto my desktop. And it's taking quite a while actually. And I also need PuTTY, so I also just drag that onto my desktop. Alright, anyway. So now that I've shown you guys how to download PuTTY and get PuTTY Gen working, I'm now going to show you how to access AWS. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to type in AWS into your web browser. And currently I've typed it in, and around this, the second link, because the first one's an ad, should be the access code to AWS, or the link to AWS. I'm not signed into my account yet, so I'm going to do that on the side. Again, any questions, feel free to ask me whenever.
Okay.
Yeah, it's taking quite a while to load actually. Wi-Fi is kind of bad right now.
How much does it cost to run the AWS? How much are you paying right now?
Well, AWS gives 750 free hours of EC2 usage for the first year you create an account. And this is free tier usage, which I will show.
So they have it set up so any individual can set up.
Yes, but you do need a credit card though. Don't worry, they don't charge you anything.
What is it with credit in this world?
Well, because they give off 750 free hours, I assume that they don't want people making multiple accounts. So now that I've logged into AWS, it brings me to the AWS Management Console. And just like a search engine, I can search things up here. So I'm going to type in EC2, and this brings me to the EC2 resource. And now I'm in the EC2 Management Console. Currently, I don't have any instances running, so I'm going to need to create one. To do that, I can click on instances here, or instances on the side. And to launch an instance, do you guys know what button I should press?
Action.
Probably the button that says launch and install.
Oh.
Yes, very good. Alright, here we have the operating systems, like I told you from earlier. And these are all different versions of Linux, but here we have Windows. I'm not going to be using Windows, instead I'm going to be using Amazon Linux. And this is free tier eligible. As I said before, AWS gives off 750 free hours of EC2 usage. And it has to be the free tier though. So I'm going to go ahead and click on select. Here we can see a few different things.
What does it mean by free tier?
It means that it is free.
Okay, got it. And then you can have 750 hours on those.
Yes.
Okay.
We have the CPU, the memory, and the storage. Right now I have one CPU and 1 gigabyte of memory. And the instance storage is EBS, or Elastic Block Store, which is another AWS tool. So again, I have to go with the free tier to save, or to not spend any money. And next I can go ahead and configure. I don't have to configure anything here, so I will leave this blank.
Can you like change the CPU, number of CPU, or the memory or anything like
Yeah,
that?
you can change the amount of CPU or memory.
Okay.
What do I do?
He's on the free package, right? You're on the free package.
Yes, this is the free package.
Yeah.
Alright.
if you pay, you can do anything.
Okay, have to pay more?
Then you can do more.
Alright, here's the place where I would add more storage. As you can see here, I have 8 gigabytes right now, and I don't want to add any more storage because 8 gigabytes is enough for me. Next, I'm going to add tags. So tags are mainly used for billing for businesses, but I can also add a name to my instance. Do you guys have any name you guys want?
Oh, what?
For the instance, you guys can
For the
name this.
virtual machine?
Yeah.
Okay. Pick kind of name, anyone.
Alright, well,
Pick a name.
I'll call this 85 because 85 showed up. Anyways, finally I can configure my security groups. So security groups are the rules that allow us to access our virtual machine. Here I have the SSH rule right now, which allows me to SSH into my virtual machine. And I need to add one more rule here, so I'm going to be creating a new security group. So I'm going to go ahead and name this Demo, and I need to add one more rule. So what I'm going to do for my instance to show you how it works is I'm going to be installing a web server onto it, so I can access it from the web. And I first need the HTTP rule because currently I can't access it from the web. So these zeros mean that you don't need a specific IP to basically connect to it. You can connect to it from anywhere. And finally, I can go ahead and review and launch. And this is just basically the information that I showed you from earlier, all condensed. Finally, launch. And I need to create a new key pair. This is basically the password I'm going to use for SSH. And I'm going to also name this
How about Minion?
I think I already have one named Minion, so I'm going to name this Minion 2.
Oh, okay.
And RSA is an encryption type. ED is also an encryption type. So I'm going to be using RSA since I've used it all the time. Finally, we have to download our key pair. And we have to store this in a secure and safe location. So I'm going to go ahead and save this in the downloads folder. As you can see, it's currently in my downloads folder. So now that I've saved my key pair, I can go ahead and launch the instance. So we click on the blue button that says launch instance, and it is now gonna launch. So we can now view our instances. And as you can see, the name 85, which was the tag, is shown up there. And if I click on the instance, we see that it's currently pending. This means it's in the process of being created right now. And I have a few different things here. I have the private IP address, I have the public IP address, I have the instance type, which is a T2 micro. And if I scroll down a bit here, I see a few different things. I have my operating system up here, and the one that we chose from earlier, which was a part of the free tier. And if I go to security, we have our security groups, the SSH rule and the HTTP rule. And that, for networking, it's basically the same information up here above. We have the public IPv4 address and the private IPv4 address. And storage, we have the elastic block store, the 8 gigabyte volume that we attached earlier. Finally, we can go to status checks. Now, I don't expect anything in status checks right now because my instance is not online right now. If it were online, then it would have status checks. So as you can see, it's currently pending, which means it's not online. Monitoring. Monitoring has the same problem. My instance is not online, so I don't get any information. And you can set your monitoring to update anytime you want, basically. Here I have a few different things: CPU utilization, status checks, network in bytes, network out byte, and a few different other options. And finally, tags. We only added one tag, which was the name tag, and we named it 85. So now if I go back up to instances, we see that it's now running. So let's go ahead and connect to it. But before I connect to it, I want to show you guys something. So if I type in the IP address here, it's gonna As we can see, there's nothing here because I haven't installed anything here yet. So we need to install the web server here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have to access PuttyGen actually. As I showed you from earlier, you can get it onto your desktop by following the steps I did. And now we have PuttyGen, so we have to load in the key that we downloaded to convert files. So here I have the downloads folder, but this is not the right key actually. I named it Minion2. So we have to click here in the scroll down menu to all files. And now we have the one that I downloaded today, Minion2. And so I can now open this and we can see the successfully imported key or page, and we click on that and we can finally save private key. I don't need a passphrase to protect it, and I'm going to be calling this Minion2. So now we converted it from a PEM to a PPK, which is the correct file type we need. So I can save that, and I don't need Putty generator anymore. So I close that out. Next, I need Putty itself. The first thing I want to do here is I want to expand on SSH, and I want to click on auth. Here we can put in our private key, which I'm going to go ahead and put in here now, the PPK, and open. So we now have our password in, great. But we also need our username. The username that we have is EC2-user at, and again, we get the IP address from this page, and we can click this to copy it. So now I go back here, EC2-user at our IP address. By the way, it also has to be the public IPv4 address. If you use the private one, it will not work. So now that we have our IP name and address, we can go ahead and open it. So it's going to bring me to the terminal, and I trust this server, so I'm going to say yes. First thing that we have to do is we have to go ahead and do sudo yum. Sorry, my computer's a little bit slow right now. Sudo yum update, as it says up here. And now it's going to be installing everything. So sudo yum update is our commands for the Linux terminal, AWS Linux to be exact. So sudo stands for super user do, and it's like an admin doing something. Yum is the installer command. It allows me to install all of this from the internet. And finally, update is update. So now I want to install my web server now that I've updated. So I have to run the command sudo yum install -y httpd. httpd is what the web server is called, and I'm currently installing it. And it is now completed. So I need to do one more thing before we have our web server active. I need to do, where is it? Sudo, whoops, not sudo, sudo service httpd start. And now we have started our httpd. So if I refresh this page, we can see that it is now changed and I've installed my web server. So once here, you can do things like upload your code or whatever to your virtual machine, and you'll be able to have a fully working web page. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and delete the instance so I don't waste any of my, yes?
Can you show up any statistics
You're right.
on the instance?
So if I go back down here, because we used a few things, I can go ahead and go to status checks. And as you can see, it passed the status checks and monitoring. So here I should see a small difference. It hasn't been a long time, so I should only see a small amount. As we can see, we used a small amount of CPU, and there are no other checks here. But for network in bytes and network out bytes, since I installed stuff, it's going to have the bytes listed. And as time goes on, it's going to create a graph. But for right now, it's only a dot because it's been around 10 minutes. Finally, I can delete the instance. So to delete the instance, I click here and then I right click it. and I have the option to terminate instances. So I'm going to go ahead and terminate the instance, and that's successfully terminated, as you can see in the shutting down instance state area. And this means that my web page will no longer be active because I deleted the instance, so nothing is running it. And we also lose connection with PuTTY because, well, there's nothing to connect to. So now that I've deleted it, I've completed the demonstration, and do you guys have any questions for me?
Yeah, in terms of the pricing, like, do they charge by